Does anybody want breakfast? Guys, let's go. I'm leaving for McDonald's in 5 seconds.
Why didn't you start with that?
The Breakfast Stampede Meal. It's only at McDonald's, where there's a meal for every morning.
And nothing gets that morning going like a melty, savory sausage McMuffin with egg. Now get 2 of your favorites for just $4.50. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Price and participation may vary. Single item at regular price.
Los incendios forestales son una gran amenaza. Para proteger a nuestras comunidades, podríamos activar un corte del suministro eléctrico por motivos de seguridad pública. Recibe alertas y más información en si.com/PSPS.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. How many times have we talked about the fact that so-called polite society, these so-called elites, all knew exactly what Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were and what they were about? Well, now, the ex-Reddit of CEO has come out and basically confirmed all of our suspicions. She had some tweets talking about Ghislaine Maxwell and the party that they were both at, and it is disgusting to know that all of these so-called elites would still associate with Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein after what they were involved in. And their excuse of, oh, we had no idea what was going on. Well, how were we supposed to know? Well, we never saw anything that was even could be considered gross or untowards. Meanwhile, you have the ex-Reddit CEO coming out and saying, oh, we all basically knew. According to Ellen Pao, they all knew what was up. They all had an idea. But yet, they were all associating with Maxwell still. She was still invited to all of these so-called elite parties. She was invited all the way up to 2018 to Jeff Bezos' private campfire event. And you mean to tell me we're supposed to believe and accept that none of these so-called elites that traverse in the circles of so-called polite society had any idea what kind of serpents were in their midst? I think they knew. And honestly, folks, I just think that they didn't care. They believed that Epstein and Maxwell would help enrich them and help benefit them in one way or another, and so it was accepted, and so it was acceptable. All of these people who sit atop their ivory towers and throw down condemnations on the rest of us are really, when it comes down to it, the sickest, most disturbed, most disgusting individuals on the face of earth. Today's article is from the New York Post, and the headline, ex-Reddit CEO tweeted she knew about Ghislaine Maxwell allegations in 2011. This article was authored by Ben Feuerherd. The former CEO of Reddit drew criticism this week after revealing that she and several others at a ritzy 2011 Silicon Valley Christmas party attended by Ghislaine Maxwell knew or suspected that she was allegedly supplying underage girls to Jeffrey Epstein, but did not call her out. And how didn't anyone know? We all read the reports from when Epstein was arrested the first time. What do you think? That just regular people are given immunity deals just for the benefit of having it? The reason she was named in that immunity deal, the reason that she was given immunity under that draconian deal is because she is as guilty as the day is long. And for these people in so-called polite society, like Ellen Pao and the rest of these people, to act like they had no idea when questioned, when in reality we all know the truth, it is offensive at this point. All of these enablers, and that's what they all are, folks, enablers, everybody that hung out with Jeffrey Epstein and helped him refurbish his image and helped him get back to being part of so-called polite society, all of them bear responsibility. Ellen Pao, the former CEO of Reddit, said in the tweet posted Monday that Maxwell was at the party hosted by Kleiner Perkins, a venture capital giant where she worked as a partner. Yeah, well, does that shock you? A venture capitalist inviting somebody like Ghislaine Maxwell to a party? Fellow travelers and all. And one thing we have really uncovered for those who haven't been paying attention, and when I say we, I don't mean myself, I mean we as in anybody looking into this story. One thing that you certainly have found out for yourself is that the banks and the financial institutions that were doing business with Epstein and in general are as scummy gets. They knew that money laundering was occurring, and not only just basic run-of-the-mill money laundering. This money was being washed from a child sex trafficking scheme, and these banks just went right along with it. She was at a Kleiner holiday party in 2011, but I had no desire to meet her, much less have a photo taken with her. Pal wrote in a tweet on Monday, "Oh, aren't you so much stunning and so much brave?" The right thing would have been to do is walk over to her, confront her about her so-called actions, and then find whoever's in charge of the party and make sure they launch her. And if they choose not to launch her, then you should have left. But don't come out all these years later, Monday morning quarterbacking this and acting like, you're dropping some kind of huge bombshell on people. We all knew that you and your sick-ass friends knew the deal. You're just confirming what we already knew right here. We knew about her supplying underage girls for sex, but I guess that was fine with the cool people who managed the tightly controlled guest list, she added. The self-awareness here, the lack of self-awareness is mind-boggling. Lady, you were at this party as well. If you stayed, that means you agreed with what was going on. You agreed that it's cool that Maxwell is there. How about having a little bit of inner fortitude and going against the grain and walking out of that party if she is not removed? Instead, you hop on Reddit or Twitter or whatever and you make a post all these years later. Look at me, I'm helping. Twitter users slam Pao for not saying anything about the guest list for years after the party. 100%. I haven't read the tweet because, to be honest with you, I really don't bother reading threads on Twitter or anything like that unless I'm tagged in a post or mentioned. I don't really bother with it because it's a cesspool of disinformation and nonsense. But there are people on Twitter that will call you out and hold you accountable for your nonsense. And I guess we're seeing that here with Miss Pao. And she should be held to account. How dare she wait all of these years to come out and say something? What do you think? You're brave now for coming out after all of these years, after sitting on this information? This information couldn't have helped Virginia in her defamation suit? This information couldn't have helped the prosecution, perhaps? But no, now you'll come out and you'll try and score points and sound cool on Twitter for your, I don't know, probably 50,000 followers or whatever the hell it is. It is an absolute joke. This lady is a joke. So-called polite society is a joke. And Silicon Valley is inhabited with a bunch of sick, disgusting people. Sorry, but it sounded like you were fine with it too, one user responded. Wait, what? Everyone in the room knew she was a child sex trafficker, and no one in the room objected to her presence, another wrote? 100%. Like I said last night, I don't know about you folks out there, but personally, I don't know not even one person who is a sex trafficker, never mind a child sex trafficker. So how is it that all of these people in so-called polite society have a phone book full with people who are either under suspicion of sex trafficking or have been convicted of sex trafficking? It's not a coincidence, okay? Fellow travelers. Sounds like you're associated with some pretty cool people, a third user responded. And again, all these people on Twitter responding, they have the right of it here. This lady is disgusting. The fact that she supposedly knew, she said that her and all of these people knew that Ghislaine Maxwell was trafficking children, and they didn't have the courage and the fruits to stand up and say, "Hey, lady, what are you doing here? Nobody wants to associate with you. You should be in prison, not at this high-class party." But instead, they all hobnobbed, they all drank, and they all swapped stories, I'm sure. "Oh, I can do this for you. Oh, I can get you in here. Oh, I know Prince Andrew." And so the circle continued. Pao set her Twitter to private after the criticism, but later lifted the privacy setting. Yeah, of course, and that's how all of these people are. These people in so-called polite society, when they're in the position to have us under their heel, when they're in the position to take advantage of the rest of us, oh, they love to do it. But the second they're called out on their bullshit, the second anybody shows up with pitchforks and torches, oh, now it's a problem. Now I gotta set my account to privacy. How dare you bully me? Listen, lady. You should have come forward a very long time ago. You sitting on this information is bad news, and it could have went to hurt other people. So I hope when you look at yourself in the mirror at night and you're swimming through your billions of dollars and your millions of dollars, that you can live with yourself and with the fact that you remain silent in the face of absolute horrendous evil. In a second tweet, she clarified that media reports had implicated Maxwell in sex trafficking, but the accused madam had not been charged criminally at the time. Well, I don't care. Okay, point blank period. There are some things that go beyond the pale. And when it comes to what she was accused of, what she was involved in, that's where you should draw the line, okay? We're not talking about your friend who got busted for selling drugs. We're not talking about your friend who was stealing from JP Morgan. We're not talking about your typical blue-collar, white-bread-ass crime. We're talking about something completely different. Something there is no coming back from. And yet, all of these people associated with her. And furthermore, she was invited to this party by someone. To be clear, the press had described her as supplying underage girls for sex, but she had not been charged, so I guess it would be more accurate to say we suspected versus knew, she wrote. Oh, give me a break. The backtracking is ridiculous. All you had to do is read the reports. All you had to do is read the statements. All you had to do is read the evidence at the time, and you knew that Ghislaine Maxwell was neck deep in Jeffrey Epstein's bullshit. And all of these people with their bullshit excuses on a regular basis, every time they're called to account, is just, at this point, it's not even humorous anymore, it's disgusting. None of these people want to take responsibility for the fact that they were hanging out and breaking bread with sex traffickers and child molesters. Point blank, period. When asked by another Twitter user if everyone at the party was okay with Maxwell being at the party, she responded that the employees who made the guest list were fine with her attending. Well, everybody was, obviously. Nobody stood up, right? Not one person at that party had the fruits to stand up and walk over to whoever was throwing it and demand that a sex trafficker of children get thrown out of the party. So what does that say about all of you? Sometimes you have to be willing to go against the grain. Sometimes you have to be willing to go against the crowd and the majority and stand up and say, this is bullshit. This is wrong. But instead, these so-called members of polite society just go ahead and roll with it. They don't care, because at the end of the day, they don't care about anybody who is not in their so-called elite little circle. The rest of us are chattel. The rest of us are meant to go and fight in their endless wars and slave away at our dead-end jobs. That's what they have in store for us. The super exclusive party was attended by tech industry giants and former politicians including Al Gore, ex-MySpace CEO Owen Van Natta, and former Twitter engineering head Mike Abbott, according to Business Insider. Al Gore, huh? Well, that's a pretty inconvenient truth. Mr. Al Gore didn't step up to the plate, didn't go and confront Ghislaine Maxwell, didn't tell her to kick rocks, huh? Shocking. Honestly, it's not shocking. Because we all know that Al Gore is a man of small character as well. Kleiner Perkins is venture capital giant in Silicon Valley that provided funding for companies such as Amazon, Google, and Twitter. Pao served as a partner at the firm before leaving in 2012. And then she basically dropped shit on their name, right? She's not there anymore. Well, I had no say in it. I wasn't in charge of the guest list. Well, you worked there, right? You couldn't call your boss and bring it to your boss's attention and shoot it up the ladder. And if you shot it up the ladder and it died, don't you think that if you're someone like her, with her resume, that you'd walk out of that job and have another job tomorrow, especially when you explain the circumstances? But no. You stayed, you worked there, you attended the parties, and basically, you gave your consent to Maxwell also being there. Maxwell was arrested last week in New Hampshire and hit with a 6-count indictment for allegedly trafficking underage girls for pedophile Jeffrey Epstein and lying about the alleged crimes under oath. At the time of the 2011 party, Epstein had been convicted of sex trafficking in Florida and ordered to register as a sex offender. So it's not like it came as a shock to anybody, okay? Let's not act like it came as a shock. Let's not act like these people had no idea, because they did. And Mrs. Ellen Pao? Well, she's telling you right here in her own words that not only she knew, but the rest of these sick, disgusting bipedal serpents also knew, and they didn't say a word. These are the people who think that they should rule over us politically and elsewise. Well, folks, I have to tell you, now that the curtain is being pulled back, the cockroaches are starting to scurry. And it's becoming quite obvious that more and more of these members of Silicon Valley and so-called polite society knew exactly what was going on, knew exactly what Ghislaine Maxwell was, knew exactly what Jeffrey Epstein was, and they just didn't care. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. Inside of the description box, you will be able to find all of the links that pertain to the podcast. All right, everybody, we'll be back later on with a little bit more.
Does anybody want breakfast? Guys, let's go. I'm leaving for McDonald's in 5 seconds.
Why did you start with that?
The Breakfast Stampede Meal. It's only at McDonald's, where there's a meal for every morning.
And nothing gets that morning going like a melty, savory sausage McMuffin with egg. Now get 2 of your favorites for just $4.50. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Price and participation may vary. Single item at regular price.
Los incendios forestales son una gran amenaza. Para proteger a nuestras comunidades, podríamos activar un corte del suministro eléctrico por motivos de seguridad pública. Recibe alertas y más información en esi.com/PSPS.